Have you ever noticed something strange? You think you are the one looking at her, but in reality, she has already noticed you long before that? Most men don't see this. They think eye contact is just about looking, but for her, it's something deeper. When you look, you just see, but when she looks, she reads. She notices things you don't even realize about yourself. How quickly your eyes move, how long you can stay calm, how your face changes in a small moment, even the way you react when she looks back. And the truth is, you are not being judged by your words first. You are being felt through your eyes. Most men make one simple mistake here. They either look too quickly like they are unsure, or they look too long, like they're trying to prove something. And both feel wrong, because it's not about looking more or looking less, it's about how you hold that moment. The energy in your eyes, the calmness, the control, that's what creates attention. And here's the part nobody tells you. She is not trying to see if you are looking at her. She is trying to understand what kind of man you are without you saying a single word. And that decision starts in seconds. Before any conversation, before any smile, before anything even begins. So the real question is, when that moment happens, what is she actually seeing in you? Point 1. Most people think eye contact starts the moment you look at someone, but that's not where it actually begins. It begins in the moment before you look. That small pause, that almost invisible second where you are aware but not reacting. This is the part most men completely miss. They see someone and instantly look. No control, no awareness, just reaction. And that reaction says a lot without saying anything. It shows urgency, it shows impatience, it shows that your attention is not steady. But when there is a pause, everything changes. You notice her, but you don't rush. You let the moment settle, you stay calm inside yourself, and then you look. Now it doesn't feel random anymore. It feels intentional, and intention has weight, because it shows that you are not controlled by the moment, you are choosing the moment. That small delay creates a different kind of energy, not nervous, not rushed, but grounded, and that grounded presence is felt instantly. She may not think about it consciously, but she feels the difference, because most people react immediately. Very few people pause and then move, and that pause does something powerful. It slows down the entire interaction for a second. It creates space, and in that space, attention begins to form, not because you did something big, but because you didn't rush something small. And that's what makes it different, because sometimes the way you don't react immediately says more about you than anything you do after. 2. Ultra long point 2. Looking away at the right moment sounds like a small thing, but it changes the entire feeling of the interaction. Most people don't think about this. They think eye contact is just about holding it as long as possible or breaking it quickly when it feels uncomfortable. But both extremes create a certain impression that is very different from calm presence. When someone holds eye contact too long, it can start to feel forced. Like they are trying to prove something or stay in control of how they are being seen. And when someone looks away too quickly, it can feel like hesitation or lack of confidence in the moment. But there is a middle space that most people never notice. It is the moment where you already made the connection through eye contact, but you don't rush to continue it. You don't freeze in it either. You simply allow it to exist for a second, and then you release it naturally. That release is important, because it shows you are not stuck in the moment. You are not holding on to it. You are not chasing a reaction or waiting for something to happen next. You are comfortable enough to let it go without tension. And that creates a very different feeling on the other side. Instead of the interaction feeling like pressure, it feels light. Instead of feeling like something is being forced forward, it feels natural and unplanned. When you look away at the right moment, it doesn't feel like escape. It feels like control without effort, like you are not depending on the eye contact to carry the entire interaction. And this is where most people don't realize what is actually happening, because in that simple action, you are communicating something very subtle. You are showing that you are not trying to hold attention. You are not trying to lock the moment down. You are simply moving with it, and movement without pressure is what makes presence feel real. The mind of the other person starts adjusting to that rhythm without even noticing it. They don't think about it logically. They just feel that the interaction has a different flow compared to what they are used to. And once that feeling appears, it becomes part of how they experience you in every small moment after that. Because attention is not built from one action alone, it is built from the rhythm between actions. And looking away at the right moment creates a rhythm that feels calm, balanced, and naturally controlled. 3.3 There is a big difference between seeing someone and actually observing them, and most people never realize how much that difference changes the way they are perceived. When you are just seeing someone, it is automatic. Your eyes go there, your attention touches them for a moment, and then it moves away. There is no depth in it, no awareness behind it. It is just a quick visual reaction. But when you are observing, something else is happening. You are still looking, but now there is awareness behind the look. You are not just noticing that someone is there. You are quietly processing the moment without rushing it, and that changes your presence completely. Because observation is not about staring or forcing attention. It is about being mentally present while you are looking. It is a calm awareness that doesn't feel reactive. Most people stay in the seeing mode. They look quickly, react quickly, and move on quickly. Their attention is scattered, and it shows in their energy even if they don't realize it. But when someone shifts into observation, even for a few seconds, their energy slows down. Their reactions become more controlled without effort. Their presence feels more grounded because they are not just reacting to what they see. They are actually experiencing it in real time. And this creates a subtle difference in how they are felt by others, because people can sense when someone is just passing through a moment versus when someone is actually present inside it. Observation creates depth. It creates weight in silence. It makes even a simple glance feel more meaningful than it actually is on the surface. And the interesting part is, nothing needs to be exaggerated. There is no need to increase intensity or try harder. In fact, the more natural it stays, the stronger it feels, because observation is not about doing more. It is about being slower inside your awareness, and that slowness creates a kind of presence that stands out without trying to stand out. 4 Long to point 4, holding attention without holding gaze, is one of those things that most people never consciously learn, but it changes everything about how a moment feels. Because the common idea is simple, if you want connection, you keep looking, you hold eye contact longer. You try to stay focused on the other person as much as possible, but in real interaction, that approach often creates pressure instead of connection. When gaze is held too tightly, it can start to feel like intensity without space, like the moment has no breathing room. And when there is no space, the interaction starts to feel heavy instead of natural. But when you learn to hold attention without constantly holding the gaze, something different happens. You look, you connect, and then you allow yourself to naturally shift away for a moment without breaking the presence you created. And that is the key part most people don't understand. Attention is not only built through looking. It is built through the feeling that remains even when you are not looking, because real presence does not depend on continuous eye contact. It depends on whether the other person still feels you, even in the moments you are not directly engaged with them. When you stop forcing your gaze to do all the work, your presence becomes more balanced. It feels less intense in a forced way and more stable in a natural way. And this stability is what makes it noticeable, because people are used to attention that comes and goes quickly. They are used to interaction that disappears the moment eye contact breaks. But when your presence doesn't disappear just because your eyes move away for a second, it creates a different experience in their mind. They still feel your awareness even in silence. They still sense your energy even in small gaps of interaction. And that creates curiosity without effort, not because you are trying to hold them, but because your presence doesn't collapse when the gaze breaks. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think connection is built by holding on tighter. But in reality, connection becomes stronger when it can still exist even when nothing is being actively held. That's what makes attention feel natural instead of forced. Point 5. The timing of your first look matters more than most people realize, because it sets the emotional rhythm of everything that comes after it. Before a conversation even begins, there is already a silent moment happening between two people, a moment where both are aware of each other, even if nothing is said yet. And in that space, the first look is not just a look. It is the first signal of how you move in that moment. Most people rush it. They see someone and immediately look directly, without any pause inside themselves. It feels automatic, like a reflex, and that creates a very common pattern that doesn't stand out in any way. But when the timing changes, the feeling changes. If you allow a small moment before your first direct look, you are no longer reacting instantly. You are arriving into the moment instead of being pulled into it. That slight delay creates awareness inside you first, and that awareness is what gets transmitted without words. Because people don't only respond to the look itself, they respond to the energy behind the timing of that look. When the first look comes too fast, it feels like instant reaction. When it comes too controlled, it can feel unnatural. But when it comes after a calm internal pause, it feels balanced, not forced, not hesitant, just present. And that presence is what changes how the interaction begins. Because the first look becomes the reference point, it silently tells the other person how you are in the moment, whether you are rushing, whether you are uncertain, or whether you are simply steady. And once that impression is formed, it influences everything that follows. The rest of the interaction doesn't start from zero anymore. It starts from the energy that was set in that first moment of connection. That is why timing matters more than intensity. Because intensity can be adjusted later, but the initial rhythm is what shapes perception in a quiet but powerful way. And most people never realize that the real communication starts before a single word is spoken, in that small space where your first look decides the tone of everything that comes after it. 6.6. Breaking eye contact without breaking presence is something most people never learn, and because of that, they lose a lot of control over how they are felt in a moment. Because for most people, eye contact works like an on and off switch. They look, and then when they look away, the connection feels like it ends there. As if the moment only exists while the eyes are connected, but presence doesn't work like that. Presence is not carried only through the eyes. It is carried through the awareness you leave behind even after the eye contact is gone. When you break eye contact too quickly or too nervously, it feels like the moment disappears with it. Like you stepped out of it mentally as well, and that creates a gap in energy that is noticeable even if it is not consciously analyzed. But when you break eye contact in a calm way, something different happens. You acknowledge the moment, and then you release it naturally without tension inside your reaction. There is no sudden escape, no awkward shift, no feeling of leaving something unfinished in a rushed way. And because of that, the presence stays intact even after the gaze is gone. This is where the difference becomes powerful. The interaction doesn't depend on continuous looking anymore. It depends on the feeling that remains after the look ends. And when that feeling remains steady, the other person doesn't experience a break in the connection. They still feel your calmness in the space, even when you are not directly looking at them. That creates a subtle kind of continuity. Not loud, not obvious, but stable. And stability is what the mind notices most when everything else around it is constantly changing. So instead of eye contact being something that starts and stops, it becomes something that flows. It begins, it exists, and even when it ends visually, it doesn't fully end in energy. And that is what makes your presence feel continuous instead of fragmented. Point 7. Stillness is something most people underestimate because it looks like doing nothing on the surface, but in reality it carries a kind of weight that movement can never create. Most people believe attention comes from action, from speaking, reacting, smiling, moving, explaining, filling space. And in many situations, that is what they rely on. They feel like if they are not doing something, they will disappear from the moment. But stillness works in the opposite way, when someone is still in a natural, relaxed way, without forcing it, without trying to look cool or controlled. Something different happens in the space around them. The environment becomes more aware of them. Not because they are louder, but because they are not unstable. Most people move with unconscious tension. Their eyes move quickly, their reactions come fast, their body language is always slightly active, even when nothing is happening. And that creates a kind of background noise in their presence, but stillness removes that noise. And when the noise disappears, the mind of the other person starts noticing small details that were previously ignored. A calm posture, a steady expression, a moment where nothing is being forced forward, a presence that is not trying to fill every silence. And this is where attention naturally begins to form, because the mind is always scanning for patterns. And when it finds someone who is not constantly changing their energy or overreacting to the moment, it starts focusing more on them without being told to. Stillness doesn't demand attention, it receives it quietly, and the important part is that it doesn't feel empty. It feels full, but in a quiet way, like there is something stable underneath it that doesn't need to be proven. That is why stillness can make someone noticeable even in a crowded environment. Not because they are trying to stand out, but because they are not adding unnecessary movement to disappear into the background. And over time, this creates a strong impression in the mind of others, because most people remember energy that felt steady, energy that didn't rush, energy that didn't break under pressure, and stillness carries all of that without saying anything at all.